So I'm just kind of setting the context for, here's the agenda. So the purpose of the, so the background is that almost a year ago, there was data presented to
I'm trying to line myself up. There we go.
Okay. Data were presented to the Utah State Board of Education in relationship to honors courses, IB courses, concurrent courses, and they were disaggregated by groups. So low income, English learners, minority students. And when the board looked at the data, they were horrified. No, they shouldn't have been, because this is an ongoing issue for about 30 years in Utah, but anyway, about the underrepresentation of a more diverse and underrepresented student population. So the teaching and learning faculty under Jennifer Thronson, who's the literacy coordinator, and Garrett Rose, the board said you have to actually come up with a plan, and you have to address and remediate these issues of lack of access. Right. Their strategic priority is, for the board, is educational equity. So it's kind of embarrassing when you actually look at the data and see the gaps as well as achievement issues. Right. So last year we had a committee with all kinds of representation, and we developed a framework. And I'll give you the framework, but I think I'm going to give it to you for you to prepare for the next meeting, because the work that we have to do today is pretty rigorous, because we'll be coding transcripts from focus groups. And since we only have us, we want to make sure that we get it done. So the goal really, they divided the framework, and they created a framework with 3 subcommittees. So the first committee was policy issues, and Jennifer Thronson is the chairperson of that. The second one was teachers and counselors, because obviously if you have underrepresented students in challenging courses, then systemically, obviously there's something going on if kids don't have access, right? And once they do get access, they're not supported. And then the third group was really, the third pillar is students and parents. And I happen to be a big fan of students and parents. And I think that typically what happens is their voices are generally left out, which we actually, well, first of all, it's a civil rights issue. You can't leave out parents, especially diverse parents who are typically disenfranchised. And the second issue is, if you took an economic model, the people that we're supposed to be actually serving are the students. So if you even make an economic argument, it is not helpful when you look at the data, right? So I decided, because I was on the initial committee, I said, well, I'll be the chairperson, and then I'll use kind of a Stanford design thinking approach, and then do focus groups and really listen to the people that this affects. This is not about a group of administrators sitting in a room deciding what should happen for students and parents. It should be, students and parents deciding for themselves what they need. And then making policy recommendations, whether they, and you'll see in this preliminary meeting with the board, the first meeting with the board, they were generally angry about the data, which I was surprised, since I've actually been here for 20 years and the data hasn't changed much. Anyway, the fact that they were concerned is an important issue, right? So we're thinking strategically how to leverage that, right, to the benefit of families and students and diverse communities. So linguistically as well as culturally diverse, because those two are integrated. So I think we have a really great opportunity, and if you look at the way the agenda is set out, again, it's really clear about the priority of the strategic plan, which is educational equity. The other one is systems values. So you really can't have educational equity if you don't address the issue of systemic disenfranchisement and what those systems and policies do. Because you can make all the recommendations in the world, but if you're not changing policy, as any good politician, I'm pointing to you, she's our burgeoning politician, as any good politician would know, to make things that seem impossible possible, you have to be really politically strategic. And the language you use has to be the way in which it creates bridges across all these kind of diverse ideas that people have, or what they're attached to, whatever. Because usually replicating what makes us comfortable is typically what we do, even though it might not be in the best interest of children. So if you look at, I guess the warm-up question to do the introduction is, why don't we start with something, because this is pretty heavy duty, especially if we're trying to think strategically and making recommendations for the board to change policy that would have implications for districts that might not necessarily be all that happy about, right? So why don't we start off with something in your own personal experience that has been a positive event in your life, and it can be personal as well as, educational or whatever it is. It can be, because starting off with kind of a positive framework in relationship to your own experience is really identifying the best decisions are always made based on the people who are the closest to the decision, which is parents and students and families, right? So I'll start off. So as I said, I'm Christelle Estrada, and I work with refugees, immigrants, and English learners in the Federal Programs Department. And I would say, usually when I talk about positive things in my life, I talk about my dog, because he was a rescue from Gallup, New Mexico. He's very sweet, she's very sweet. And so she helps me in so many ways, and so I'm very grateful for that. But what I am going to say that I'm grateful for is the team that did the monitoring visit for Granite School District was a mix of people in teaching and learning, in assessment, and in federal programs across the entire agency. So it's the first time in the history of doing monitoring visits that was across the agency. Usually it's one specific division based on an audit for compliance sake. This one was really looking at classroom instruction and identifying the really wonderful things and promising practices that we can share across the state, as well as feedback that would support the district in relationship to how they fund resources. So that's kind of my positive thing. So I'm still on a high of that because I saw lots of great instruction, especially with an 8th grade math class teaching the Pythagorean theorem with total physical response and all refugee kids. It was like totally cool. So it was fun. So that's kind of me. So why don't we just go around? Teresa?
Okay. Hi, I'm Teresa Benedict, Mother Teresa, Pope Benedict, I remember. I work at Rose Park Elementary. I'm a mom of 2 students, and one graduated from Salt Lake Center for Science Education, and my daughter's in 10th grade there. Man, when you said think of positive things, I was like, well, okay. It was a really great positive thing for me to be a volunteer at the beginning when Miss O'Brien allowed me to come into the school. I volunteered before that, and then she actually hired me, and that was amazing. I'm severely thankful, and that's a weird word to say. I'm very thankful for the Salt Lake Center for Science Education because of the school, my kids who, I just found out my son has some high functioning autism, and my daughter who has horrible anxiety, that they fit there and they have succeeded there. My daughter's gonna be in a play before she'd be really super shy, very scared of everything. But blooming there. So yeah, so being able to use my talents in the Calming Center. I work at we call it the Calming Center, so that we help kids who have trauma. It's a trauma sensitivity thing that we help kids who are stressed out, have to take a little break, calm down, learn about their feelings, learn how to self-calm, and go back to class. Hi.
Can you hear,
I'm
can you hear
thankful
us?
for that too.
Can you hear us?
Ooh, we can't hear him. Oh.
Can't hear you. So if you can hear us, put your thumb up. Oh, he can hear us. Okay, we can't hear you, so you'll have to probably, well, I don't know. Why don't you say something and see if we can hear you? Can you say something?
Can you hear me now?
Oh.
Yeah, we can. So wait a minute until we're introducing ourselves, and so we'll get to you so you can introduce yourself, okay?
I just apologize. I want to apologize because I had a student walked in the minute I was on the call, so.
Okay. So we're just introducing ourselves.
Hi, my name is Rosanna Benali-Sag, and I am part of the Access Committee, which is an advisory committee to the State Board of Education. I currently work in the Utah Office of Multicultural Affairs as a program specialist, and I've been there for about 2.5 years. But before that, I was actually I worked in education for about 10 years, and I worked in Colorado, a little bit in New Mexico, Arizona, and then I made my way up here and I worked in Pacific Heritage Academy for a little bit. But I think a positive experience I think I've had in my work career, and it was totally different than doing speech therapy, was when I was a program director for a federal family literacy program, and just seeing how we were helping families as a whole through literacy, where we gave them adult education and they earned high school diplomas. I'm originally from San Juan County, so that's where we did that. And then also parent education, and then also trying to inspire the parents to be readers to their children. And there's one individual that I always remember. There were days, and they had to come every day, but there were days where, because he didn't have a vehicle, so he would walk about maybe 5 to 10 miles round trip, just to come to the program for most of the day, and then he would go back home. And so I think that was probably the most rewarding and most inspiring job I ever had, and so I think that was a positive experience.
Great, thank you.
Hi, my name's Gregoria Negria. I'm a senior at East. I'm in the AVID program, debate, and after school I do youth city government. Something positive or inspiring to me, probably recently that's happening, is the whole March for Our Lives and Enough, and being in youth city government and an AVID, kind of seeing how, watching the news and listening and having conversations with my friends, just seeing how even though it was sparked by something bad and horrible, I see how I'm no longer having conversations on oh well your outfit's cute, or what are you gonna do next weekend, because we should hang out, but well, we need to take action, and it's horrible how minorities are treated this way, and oh well, my mom is having this issue, actual issues that me as a future adult would have to have, and seeing how tomorrow we're gonna me and my friends are actually gonna go and take action and speak of what we as kids and how we feel about this issue. I feel just seeing how East and Highland and all these schools from different boundaries are coming together, saying, we're rivals, and we don't agree on these things in sports and things. We're not talking about sports, but we're talking about issues that need to be spoken about. So we're coming together, and I feel that's very inspiring, and that's amazing for me to see.
That's great,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you for offering that.
Hi, I'm Denny Aldridge. I work at West High School currently, teach language arts, and next year I'll be teaching AVID, which I'm excited about.
Prior to this, I was at Northwest Middle for the last 6 years, and then I worked as a Gear Up counselor before that, so kind of working on issues of access for a number of years now. And my proud moment was just happening right as we came in. Lizzie was a student of mine in 7th and 8th grade, and we stayed in touch, and she came to a bridge program we did, and did some work for her honors summer assignment that she loved. And I just was feeling like really intense happiness and pride to see you sitting here at this table, and kind of remembering you as a quiet 7th grader, and now seeing Lizzie's really a leader at our school for social justice issues, and she's one of the first people to call me on it if I ever say something that she wants to question, and I love it. I just love seeing the strong woman you're becoming. So that's my positive moment.
Great, thank you.
My name is Elizabeth Estrada, but I usually go by Lizzie. So one of my proudest moments was when I was transitioning from middle school to high school, and I went to this camp called Anytown. I don't know if you guys have heard about it, but that camp really made me realize a lot of things and really made me open-minded and very, very, I could see every single issue that was in this world and what everything is. Like sexism, racism, you can name it all, and that will at least have one topic under that. And I love talking about those issues, especially with my friends, to make them realize that these issues are real and we should be taking action no matter what. Even if it's a conversation, we should always talk about our personal experiences, whether it touches home or not. We all interconnect one way or another, whatever it is. And whenever a teacher says something very brings, if that's the right word, I would correct them on it, or I would question them, like, hey, like, this is the other point of view, or like, hey, I don't think you should say that at all, and stuff like that. And Camp Anytown just made me realize that a lot of things, that made me heal a lot from my traumas that I had in my childhood, because I was very silenced, but now I'm not willing to stay quiet when I see something wrong. So I think that's a very positive experience that I've had.
Great, thank you, Lizzie. So, do you want to introduce yourself? Can't hear him. We can't hear you.
For a second. Wait.
Is it my turn now?
Yes, could you introduce yourself?
Okay. Well, again, I apologize, being late, but too much going on today, especially. So there was no way for me to travel, because I honestly want to meet each individual in person. However, my name is Kamal Biwar. I grew up in Kurdistan of Iraq, and I moved here as a refugee in 1993. I have a doctoral degree, and I work for Salt Lake Community College as a student success coordinator. And I'm not sure if I'm on the same page, but it's based on our conversation with Crystal. I think this is what I see the most challenging experience underrepresented group faces where I am. English as a language proficiency, this is number one. Number two is math. I wish we could do something regardless, especially this is an issue for underrepresented student group. But regardless, it's your race and your background, and I've seen white, black, Hispanic, and Middle Eastern, you name it, but mostly underrepresented group coming from a different high school, poor neighborhood area. They're really suffering, and their preparation is very poor as a result. And I've seen many of them, they drop and they do not continue coming back to college. And I think that's all I have to say for now, and I will just learn from each of you guys. And if you have a question, ask me, please.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Kamal. So I wanted to let you know that the next part, we're going to be reading transcripts. Can you hear me? Okay, good. We're going to be reading transcripts and coding them. And I'm going to actually send you a transcript after the meeting so that you can also do the coding, because I see that you have the agenda. I'm going to go over the coding. Yep. I'm going to go over the agenda, and then then I'll actually send you a transcript and you can do the coding on your own. And then the next meeting that we have, which will be in May, because there's all kinds of things going on. So it'll be like May 10th or something like that. Then I'll tell you what the next steps are, okay? Because then you'll still be included, but then you could do work when you have time to do it. How does that sound? Okay, great. Okay, so let's look at the agenda, because so we have, and again, if you look at the norms, I use these norms just because if you write it down, then you become aware of it. So it's really about how we work as a group together. So if every voice matters, then the obligation is to monitor your own airtime, like how often you speak and how long you speak, right? So it's not up to me to do that. It's up to you to monitor your own. And once we get everybody else in here too, I think it'll be even more challenging when we start trying to make recommendations. And then listen to each other without judgment. One of the really interesting Google studies about innovative groups with diverse cultural and linguistic people represents the key characteristic of listening without judgment. Because as soon as you go to judgment, then the possibility for innovation and thinking differently about things ends up decreasing substantially. So since what's always happened isn't necessarily working all that well, the point is not to be stuck in the solutions that people have provided previously, right? That's the point of innovation. It's really thinking beyond the ways in which we typically think. And then stay focused on completing the task for each meeting. So we only have about 35 minutes to do this, but let me explain what we're going to do. So we're actually going to analyze the analysis of transcripts in 5 groups. Now, we're probably not going to have 5 groups because we don't have that many people here. So it should be at least 2 people on each transcript, and we would go to different parts of the room. You'd be reading the transcript out loud, and then while you're reading the transcript, you're going to use, and I have the yellow marker, to highlight positive experiences that students or families talk about. You're going to use the orange marker to highlight negative experiences. And then you're going to put a red check by a recommendation made by what students and parents want. After you do that, you're going to decide as a pair the 5 or 10 most common positives. You're going to write them on chart paper. Then what we'll be able to do, and then also the 10 most negative comments. And then decide as a team the most important recommendation for your group. So it would be something like this. So I'll give you an example. So I'm not cheating. Well, I'm kind of cheating, but so one of the positive things that the students that I interviewed in the focus group said that what really works for them is instruction that focuses on group work and really is structured to help the students really understand what the assignment is and the words and all of that. So group work for them really works well. And what doesn't work well is a 50-minute lecture, straight lecture. Okay, that doesn't work. Of course, it doesn't work for anybody, but you know, they're pretty clear about that. So then you would write, you know, what works for students is, and then what doesn't work for students. And then from a recommendation that comes out, you would say, you know, from a student's perspective, what they want is teachers to create engaging experiences that are real world. That's the other thing commonly that people said, that the students said. They don't want like these abstract, theoretical, old-fashioned textbooks that were, you know, written in 1950, which actually somebody in West said. So they're not really interested in that kind of thing. So that would be an example of you coding them and then on a chart paper, really identifying the 5 to 10 really positive things and then the 5 negative things, and then 1 really solid recommendation that we could eventually, when we get feedback, we could turn into a policy recommendation. Things that either families or teachers really want. Okay. So this is kind of what I'm thinking. I'm thinking, why don't we, Teresa, I'm going to give you the Glendale parents.
Okay.
And maybe Rosanna, you can work with Teresa on the parents, the Glendale parents. So at least that's 2 people. We can't have you do West. We can't have you do East. So the 2 of you, right, from West should do East. All right.
Hello?
Oh.
Yes?
Hey, this is Kwele. I've been on the call since the start, but like for some reason I was trying to figure out how to like unmute myself. So I did hear everybody's introduction.
Yeah,
But I got it.
well, did you get your introduction? Why don't you introduce yourself to everyone?
Yeah, let me do it real quickly. So this is Kwele Organista. I'm currently in New York City. That's where I've been living in the past couple of months. But I'm moving back to Utah in a month. I graduated. I'm originally from La Ciudad, Mexico, and I immigrated when I was young in elementary school and grew up in Rose Park and graduated from West High School doing the IB program, and went to the University of Utah. I got my degree in social justice pedagogy, and then I taught at Horizonte for a little bit, health, and then. I have a nonprofit in Utah called Casa Quetzalcoatl, which uses indigenous epistemologies and a cross-generational approach in empowering the Latino, Latinx community in Salt Lake City for college readiness and also cultural empowerment and civic engagement. Currently I'm finishing my master's at Columbia University. That's why I'm in New York, but I'll be back in Utah in a month. And it's in sociology. And one of my positive experiences, my favorite, most impactful teacher that I had was my third grade teacher. Her name was Miss Pretty on Top. She's Native American. I'm going to try to connect with her now in the future, but she was so empathetic in me trying to learn English, and also just like showing me like what it means to be using culturally sustaining pedagogy, even though I don't think back then it was called that, but, authentic care. And then, that's really what empowered me to feel like I wasn't stupid, because before that I felt like I was stupid. I wasn't able to learn, and that's of course wrong and not true. But yeah, so now I guess I can participate in terms of like leading the Park City one, if that's where you want to move forward with.
Yeah, so do you have the agenda as well? Because what you can do is you don't have to stay in the meeting, but you can actually do the coding by yourself. And then the Salt Lake community, our colleague who works with refugee students, he would do the Park City coding as well. And then we combine them together. So you don't have to stay on this call. You can actually do the coding based on the agenda. So do you have the agenda with the coding analysis?
Yep.
Okay, so don't feel obligated, because we're just going to do, we have a half an hour to do all the coding for the other ones. But I'm depending on you and Kamal separately to do the coding, and then we'll actually put it together for the next meeting, which is May 10th. Will you be back by May 10th?
I move officially back on May 18th, but May 10th I should be able to finish the coding.
Okay, great. So when you finish the coding, you can send it to me, and that would be easier. And then I'll have Kamal send it, and then we'll combine it. But you should also focus on the most common positives. Well, actually, you can't really do that until we do the analysis. But if you just do that part, that would be really helpful. So are we set with you, Joel?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. All right, thanks so much. Have fun in New York. I wish I was there with you.
Yeah, I'll have fun with my finals. Okay, I'll see you all in a month.
Okay, sweetheart. Love you much. Take care. Okay, so here's the East High. So this is Denny and Lizzie. This is, we have Clark City for them. Here's the parent group. If we get done, so if anyone happens to get done quickly, we have Ogden High to do.
Okay.
But we're, the two of us, we do West. Okay. So Kamal, I'll actually send you the transcript for Park City High School, and then you can do the coding on your own. Okay? Yes? Okay, great. Okay, so here's the markers.
Send an email.
So remember, the yellow is the positive.
I think he's saying something.
Are we
So
doing
you don't need
email?
yeah, so you don't need to stay on now. After the meeting, I'll send you the transcript from Park City High School, and you can do it on your own. Okay?
Can I go now or can I stay? What do you want me to do?
No, you don't need to stay, because I'm gonna email you the transcript and you can do it on your own,
I can take that.
okay? And then the other thing is,
I do.
Bye.
yes,
Sounds good.
bye. Thanks, Kamal.